You know, Hosea wanted to forgive his wife. She had been unfaithful. But Yosef ben David didn't have to forgive Miriam bat David. Why not? Because she was not unfaithful. She was a virgin, and he did not have to give her a get because she never broke the engagement. Now, at that time, to break an engagement, you had to give the wife a get. A, a marriage was dissolved with the bill of divorcement, and the engagement had to be broken with a bill of divorcement, just as if it were a marriage. And that's what Joseph ben David was thinking about doing, having a private thing so he would not shame her. Also, so that she would not be a chained woman, an aguna, uh, because without that bill of divorcement, she would not be able to marry again, which of course the women did at that time. To live alone without the support of a man would be practically impossible in that society. But Joseph ben David did not have to forgive her. There was nothing to forgive. And in the case of Hosea, and a lot of people don't realize this, when there is unfaithfulness, the paternity of the children is thrown into question. And in Hosea chapter 2, verse 4, the paternity of these three children is thrown into question because if she was unfaithful, who knows who the father is? They're called children of whoredom, Hosea chapter 2, verse 4. And also, this would have been the thought with Miriam, an unwed mother who is unfaithful. She then would be someone, Joseph would not know who the father was, and the child would be a mamzer uh, because she would be unmarried. He would give her a bill of divorcement, a get, and that would be his way of putting her away. In the case of Hosea, God is making a point. The people are unfaithful to him. He is a cuckold with his own people, who is the unfaithful spouse to him, and he's threatening to give her a bill of divorcement. Of course, when they go off into the exile and the northern kingdom is destroyed and never returns from that Golis, it is in effect a final divorcement. But when you get to Matthew chapter 19, verse 9, you see that the Pharisees uh, were trying to embattle Yeshua by embroiling him in a controversy about the interpretation of two words in the Torah, ervat dev, dev, devar, which means something indecent or a matter of indecency. And Moses says that the husband can give a bill of divorcement to any wife if he sees anything like that. So if Joseph ben David had seen something like that in Miriam, he could have given her a bill of divorcement, and that would have been the end of the engagement and the marriage. However, in a dream, God showed him not to fear, but to go ahead, because this one was from the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, in Matthew chapter 1, verse 19, you see immorality or deception in entering a union would annul the marriage, which would be by a bill of divorcement in the engagement period. So the woman must be chaste. So what if you have a woman who breaks the engagement by committing adultery during the engagement period, and then there's a deception where the man goes ahead and marries her, then the children of that marriage are also thrown into question as far as their paternity is concerned, because every time this woman gets pregnant, she also has an affair that she's involved in at the same time. So who the father of these children is remains a question. Any husband who sends his spouse away, but then notice Matthew 19:9 gives an exception. The reason of fornication being left out of account or accepted, then marries another woman, commits adultery, that would be against the first woman. However, this is accepted in the case of porneia, sexual immorality, unchastity, or unlawful sexual intercourse. And this meant that the man who follows the Torah is being protected thereby from going through life with a second marriage, but under the stigma of being called an adulterer against his first wife, when in fact he was forced by the Torah to put the first of two wives away, because the first wife was really not a wife, it was like an annulled marriage. And so Yosef ben David would have been accepted by Matthew 19:9 from being an adulterer if he had in fact found his fiancée to be an immoral fiancée, Matthew 1:19, and if in fact he had thereafter remarried subsequent to the annulment of the first marriage. So an engagement in that day had the binding force of a marriage. That's the thing you have to keep in mind. And had to be broken by divorce, by a bill of divorcement called a get, a divorce, a get. So what Yeshua is saying is, don't think that you can mask lechery with legalism. Because if you put one woman away with a get and marry another one, and then maybe do that again and again, that lechery cannot be masked with legalism. Yeshua says, if you even look at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery against her. So why am I talking about this? One reason is I want you to go to the bio section of the AFII.org website and look at page 729 and 730 in Matthew, and then go to page 549 and look at the material on Hosea. Because God is dealing with an unfaithful spouse called Israel, Hosea was called to marry a wife of whoredom so that he would know what a cuckold feels like, so that he would know the heart of God. He wants to forgive her, but he has an ambivalent attitude. On the one hand, he has a tender, broken heart that wants reconciliation. On the other hand, he has a fist of hellish reprisal where he wants justice against her her wickedness. And this is the way God feels. And when we deal with people in the modern age, where so many people are living together, where there is no marriage, there never was a marriage, where there are multiple partners, and where there is infidelity, we have to go back to the Bible and try to sort this out and try to see it from God's point of view and try to understand the infidelity of the unsaved person whose heart breaks any covenant and needs a new covenant. Do you remember Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 31 to 34? Which covenant they broke. This refers to the Sinai covenant, where God took his bride across the threshold into the Holy Land from the Exodus, across the Red Sea, across the Jordan. And that covenant was broken. And Hosea is preaching against the northern kingdom, where there are calf idols, and where there is the storm god Baal and the fertility god Asherah, and where the people have turned away from the true God in his temple in Jerusalem, and they are following other gods. They've broken the commandment of the Aseres Hadibros. And so now the Assyrian exile awaits them, 722 BC. And Hosea is preaching and warning them. And in his own household, he has this infidelity to deal with. Now, in Jewish ministry, very often people who are called into this ministry have just this kind of infidelity to deal with, both possibly in the engagement period and also in the marriage period. But in the case of Yosef ben David, there was no infidelity. His wife was a virgin, an unwed virgin, an unwed mother. And this child, through her genealogy, connected to Natan, one of the sons of Bathsheba, and his genealogy connected to Shlomo or Solomon, also another son of Bathsheba. And if you go to the First and Second Chronicles, and you go back and you look at the mention of Bathsheba, you will see this. And this is why we have Luke researching Miriam's genealogy and Matthew researching Yosef ben David's genealogy. And the wonderful thing is that Yosef ben David did not have to forgive Miriam because she did not sin against him. She was a virgin. And all the slander in Judaism about her in the Talmud is an evil lie. And this is why we don't go beyond what is written, and this is why we look at the scriptures and we come to a saving knowledge of the Zun von der Eibishter, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.